Hi, everybody. My name is Bob Goodwin, and I am the founder of Career Club. And welcome to another episode of Career Club's LinkedIn Live series. If you're not familiar with Career Club, we're using proven sales methods and tools to help folks like you find a career that matters. So if you're in transition or in a job that you don't love, please check us out on career.club, and we'd be happy to help you. If we are not connected on LinkedIn or you're not following Career Club, I would encourage you to do both of those. We post content pretty regularly and would love to be able to share that with you as well. This is a live event. It will be available on replay as well as on YouTube and on your favorite podcast platforms afterwards. But in the fact that it's live, if you've got any questions or comments, we're going to be monitoring those. In fairness, we had over 400 folks register for this, so we'll have to kind of manage that as we go. But please do drop in comments or questions if you have them, and if Steve and I can get them, we will. I also want to say thank you to my colleague, Heather Zinzer, who is the magic behind the technology here and making all this work and be a seamless experience. So Heather, as always, thank you. And with that, I'd like to introduce today's guest. I am over the moon to have Steve Cadigan join us. Steve was the first Chief Human Resource Officer at LinkedIn. And during Steve's tenure there, LinkedIn went from 400 associates to 4,000, which is amazing. And we'll get into Steve's career background in just a minute. But secondly, and we've got the visual right here, and just to put it up on camera, the book Workquake. This is really what got me introduced to Steve. If you've not read Workquake, I just can't recommend it enough. It's in my top three, at least top two, with good to great. Workquake is just such a challenging book, but an encouraging book on the changing face of work, the future of work. So with that said, I'd like to introduce today's guest and my friend, Steve Cadigan. Steve, welcome.
Hey, Bob. Great to be here on the Career Club.
Yeah, awesome. So where do we find you today? Where are you?
I'm at my home in Silicon Valley, Menlo Park, California.
Nice. There you go. Mm-hmm. So as is our custom, we've got just a handful of icebreaker questions to help people get to know you a little bit better. So first one is, where were you born and raised?
I was born in St. Louis and I was raised in Westville, Natal, South Africa.
Wow. How did that come about?
My parents were real adventurous and my dad's a minister. And they wanted an experience unlike they could find in the United States. So they decided, at a period of real interest that they had in free speech and so forth, they decided to go to South Africa. And on a one-year experiment, and they loved it so much, we stayed there 5 years.
That is super cool. See, I've already learned something about you I didn't know. And then where'd you go to college? Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at a school that many people, when I share the name, says, "Oh, isn't that an all-girls school?" I go, "I don't think so." I went to Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut. Mm-hmm. After South Africa, my family mostly lived in South Africa. We mostly live in Connecticut. So I was there from 1970 till 1986 when I finished up at Wesleyan. But yeah, that's where. And it's called Middletown, Connecticut, where the school's located because it's right in the middle of New Haven and Hartford.
Oh, there you go. Very cool.
Yeah.
And then a little bit about your family.
Okay, so I have 3 teenage boys. 18-year-old just graduated from high school last Friday. So we're still in the afterglow of that. I have 2 15-year-old twin boys. Apparently that's all I can make. I am married, and my wife, it's my second marriage. My wife has 2 daughters. So we are one shy of a Brady Bunch.
There you go.
My wife she lives in San Diego most of the time, and I live in Silicon Valley most of the time. So we go back and forth, probably every other week. Yeah.
Those sound like 2 nice destinations to me.
Yeah.
And so, obviously we shared with folks, your the part of your career at LinkedIn, but do you mind just sort of kind of a quick aerial overview of your career arc?
Sure. I have what I think is increasingly common today, sort of a non-traditional, sort of asynchronous career arc, if you will. I was a history major. I went to college and I graduated college not having a clue what I wanted to do at all. And I stumbled on California after graduating college in Connecticut because I had a girlfriend at the time who lived in California. So I followed love to the West Coast And the only company on campus I interviewed with that said, "Hey, we're kind of interested in you," was in San Francisco, and that was Esprit, a fashion company. And so after about a year in that role in the finance organization, I was offered an opportunity to be a recruiter. And so I loved it. And after about 3 or 4 years at Esprit, I moved to the insurance industry as an HR representative, then an HR manager, and then I moved to high tech, advanced micro devices. I think it was 94. And I fell in love with the high, crazy pace of Silicon Valley and how they're more open to new ideas of culture and leadership and org design. And so at that point, I decided I was in love with HR, so I'm going to go get a master's degree. And while I was working at AMD, I also switched companies and worked for Cisco after about 4 years. And I finished my degree in between those two companies, so over the course of a couple of years. And that was great for me because the first time in my life where I really was going to school with a purpose.
Yeah.
When I graduated high school, I just went to college because that's what you do. And now I was deciding to go because I was really thirsty to learn more about my craft, and I wanted to do HR for the rest of my life. So I loved my time there. It was a very small group. We were in an office building for 2 years every Thursday night for like 5 hours, and it was great. I loved it. And from AMD, I went to Cisco, and Cisco at the time that I joined it was the most valuable company in the world for a couple of weeks before the dot-com bubble burst. I did M&A integration there, which was very different for me. Very important work in the human resources domain. There's nothing more crazy in your career than getting acquired. And so I learned to really like that high pace and the high craziness of that work. The economy took a turn when the dot-com bubble burst in 2001. So I was offered a chance to go lead HR for Cisco Asia. So I became head of HR for Asia Pacific, which was really fun for me. Never had spent any time in Asia. I didn't really know where Singapore was before I went over there, honestly. And just had an incredible 2-year adventure. From there, I was recruited by a company in Canada to be their head of HR. So for the first time in my life, I was the first head of HR position. And that was outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, which is just fell in love with that part of the world. And that part of Canada is wonderful. After being there for another 4 years, this is a sort of a key timeline in my life. Every 4 years, I must get restless or something. I was hired and recruited by Electronic Arts to be to lead their new HR acquisition integration team that they were going to be buying companies. And then 2008 came, and the market tanked, and my job really changed so much so that it wasn't interesting. That after being at EA less than a year and a half or so, I decided to consider other opportunities because it just wasn't that interesting anymore. And that's when LinkedIn came knocking up the door. So I never worked for a small company, never worked for a pre-IPO startup, and that's your dream. If you're in Silicon Valley, you'd always want to take a bite at the apple. And I was their first real HR person and walked into an incredible opportunity to grow a company, which you spoke of in the introduction. It was amazing. And when I started 400 and left 4,000, we had 2 offices to 17, and we had employees in 2 countries. When I left, we had employees in 26 countries, and still considered one of the best performing IPOs in the world of technology. So very, very proud of that and the culture that I helped build there. And then after being there for almost 4 years, I decided to leave, and with no plans other than take a break because I've been working really hard, and I had 3 small kids, and I wanted to sort of change up the mix of my life. And so over the last 10 years, I've just been building my own business, helping organizations and leaders build great talent strategies. And the book was sort of the consummation of a lot of thinking that I had around why people are so frustrated with work and companies and employees, and trying to help them navigate that. So
well, I'm looking forward to unpacking that part of it. And,
Sure.
Between education, variety of experiences, geographical, kind of diversity, bringing all these different points of view. I think all that really comes through in the book, which is cool. And just very quickly, where do we find you when you're not, doing work stuff? What are you passionate about? What do you like to do?
I love coaching my kids' sports. They've outgrown my coaching capacity now, but I was a big baseball and basketball coach. I'm shuttling my kids to and from their basketball practices now. This past year, I had a son on varsity, a son on JV, and a son on the freshman basketball team, which was really fun for me. So
Oh,
that's a lot
wow.
of practices and a lot of games. And I couldn't have been happier than being a part of their continuing arc of growth. When I'm not doing that, I like playing tennis. I'm a voracious reader, and I've moved my consumption of content to listening to a lot of podcasts and listening to Audible, especially during the pandemic where I was driving instead of flying to San Diego, I was driving. And I know every like In-N-Out burger, or when I was really into the Burger King came out with the Impossible Whopper, which became my favorite. And so I know all the good places to take your dog out for a little rest on the ride. So, but yeah, that's what I love doing. I love exercise, very important to me. And yeah, I guess I don't know. You probably see me hiking around. I take my dog on lots of hikes and go to the dog beaches around here and so forth. And when I'm not with my kids, my wife and I do a lot of traveling. So I speak as probably the main source of my income right now is speaking in companies and conferences around the world or around my Zoom table, as it has been the case the last few years. That's kind of that's where you'll find me.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, we've gotten to know each other over the past several months now, and you are smart, interesting, fun. So I've really been looking forward to having you on the call today. So let's go ahead and start kind of unpacking Workquake a little
Sure.
bit. And as we've talked before, even in the little green room part of this, is almost everybody is an employee. There's very few CEOs, and if you're not the CEO, you're an employee of somebody's. And so I'd kind of like to start from the employee side, but before we get there, do you mind just sharing with people sort of the general thesis of Workquake? And maybe let's just start there. What prompted you to write the book?
Sure. Doug, over the course of my 30 years or so working, I increasingly saw, felt, experienced frustrations not only as an employee, but as an employer. And I wasn't sure why I was frustrated. I wasn't sure why some of these situations kept coming up in organizations that I was working within. And I think when I left the active operator role that I had at LinkedIn and stood back and just talked, listened, read, observed, became a student of work more than a participant in it, I think I started to connect dots to help uncover why there's a frustration increasingly. And so, at a high level, I believe the world of work has changed so much in the last 3 decades, let's say. But the models of how we lead, how we govern, how we communicate, how we structure, how we recruit, how we think about careers have not kept pace with that change. So we're using a lot of infrastructure that's fundamentally built for a slower pace of work that's causing all kinds of frustrations. And what I tried to do in the book is say, all right, part one is for employees. This is how the world of work is changing. This is why you may be frustrated. And these are some things that people are doing to look at it in a more refreshing, more engaging perspective. And what I tried to do in the second half of the book was say, hey, employers, this is why you're frustrated. This is why your models are broken. This is why you shouldn't focus on trying to keep people for a long time, because people are not going to stay long in companies in the future. And so we need models that find how you can create value for someone in shorter horizons. And so forth. And this whole notion of all these things are changing, and nobody's really excited that the world of work has changed or faster, but it has. And so what I wanted to try to do with Workquake was start a conversation that we really owe ourselves, all of us, employers, employees, we owe ourselves to feel more excited, more energized by the experience of work. And that could be, whether you work for someone or you work for yourself, you're trying to, connect dots of why the frustrations exist so that people can say, I don't know that I, have any shocking revelations in the book as much as I have connected dots that maybe people haven't connected before. Right.
Yeah. And so, like so many things, it seems like those frustrations that people have felt, that this disconnect from what they're doing, how they make a living, like so many things, the pandemic has just accelerated those trends? Is that been your observation?
Oh gosh, Bob, I finished the book before the pandemic. I had my manuscript is pretty much done. And then the pandemic hits and I'm sitting there. It's probably, May, June. And it just started in March. I'm like, oh no, how long is this going to go? How bad is it going to be? What the impact's going to have? And I worried, honestly, that how can I publish a book on the future work that doesn't account for the massive changes we were seeing, within 6 months of the pandemic. So I had to go and revisit that and map up all my theories, thoughts, dots that I was connecting in a way that, as best I could, forecast how the pandemic was going to do. And exactly what you said happened, which is the pandemic was really an accelerant. And yeah, the last 2 years have been hard, but the last 20 years have been hard too. And what the last 2 years did is just rip the Band-Aid off or rip the scab open, whatever metaphor you want to use. And it really is been revealing and really it's super hard for every company. And new things happen that I wasn't talking about in the book, such as remote work and hybrid work. That wasn't a thing at scale like it is now. And so I had to sort of think through, some of these things and what that means. But the best part for me about the pandemic, honestly, Bob, was that it created a call to action that we really have a moment to rebuild the future work better, even more than my book could have done. So it was like capturing lightning in a bottle. The pandemic couldn't have happened at a better time for my book launch, because everyone gets it now. Like, yeah, we're all dissatisfied for things that weren't irritating us before. We're finding really increasingly dissatisfying now. And so it's a great time because the whole world changed for everyone. It's a great time for us to try to build something better.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways that I describe it is before the pandemic, the frame of our lives was work, and our real life had to fit into the frame, right? So sorry, you have to commute an hour and a half each way. Sorry, you got to be on a plane 70% of the time. Whatever it is, sorry, but the frame is work, and my life needs to fit into that frame somehow. And the pandemic just like majorly, as you said, pushed the reset button.
Yeah.
And people are now at home and like, wait a minute, I like having dinner with my family. I like having these 2-3 hours of my day back so that I can be a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, whatever. And now the frame is life, and work needs to fit into that frame. And there's no going back. And so I think some of these frustrations that you started talking about, like it really kind of just brought it into stark light of what it was that was frustrating people, and that they have choices that maybe they didn't have before.
And if you think about it really is a gift that we've all been faced with this question. We've never really stood back and asked, which is, well, what is work anyway? And why am I doing this? And what's the point? And things like, what is productivity, right? People are saying now, I'm much more productive at home. Okay, you're much more productive with your tasks, but are you creating more productivity for the company, interacting less with people than you were before, possibly, right? Like, what is productivity? And I get it. And people saying, you know what? This whole structure of 9 to 5 right now, Bob, is under attack, right? It's like 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Who came up with that? Why are we here? We were not having those conversations before. And that's the beauty of this moment right now. We should understand, why are we doing what we're doing? Why is the work, set up the way it's been? And the truth is, a lot of the research now is revealing that the model of work 9 to 5 came from Henry Ford's manufacturing plants. And and so that's what we're using right now. Something built to solve a specific problem about a century ago, And so that's what I love about the pandemic, is it's sort of been a shock to the system. And we're like, whoa, why are we doing this? And things like, for me, simply like, I've been on my own for the last 10 years. I love shopping on Tuesday morning at the grocery store when there's no one there. And all the stock is refreshed it's Monday. So I'm getting fresh stuff that's delivered to the grocery store, not the stale stuff on Sunday when everyone's there mobbing it, right? And so that's super interesting to me, is that taste that everyone had of a different framework has never been tasted at the scale we have before right now. And that's really, 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 really interesting. I'm just looking a little bit. My eyes are drawn because the comments are flying in here, Bob. So really good.
Okay, and
good
Scott,
engagement.
we'll jump on this topic of retirement in a second.
Sure.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about, and I want to focus not just on problems and kind of what's wrong, but actually the solutions to some of these things. But one of the points that you make, and it's actually the opening story in the book, is this contract between an employer and employee that never was. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. What I wanted to do in the very outset of my book was to share an experience that I had where I worked somewhere. It was EA. I left within about a year and a half. And the shockwaves of my departure before the expected duration of my tenure was revealing to me. Like, I'm leaving for a job that company didn't have. It was a huge step up for me, a huge rare opportunity. And yet I was made to feel guilty, disloyal, bad. I was breaking an agreement, which was essentially, and this is what a lot of organizations still operate with. And I'm not blaming anyone because it's just sort of a paradigm we've all inherited, which is you commit to stay here a long time. I commit to employ you a long time. We're not going to put that in writing and it's not going to be a guarantee, but we're both having this shared understanding, which we both know is false and broken and probably not true because you'll leave when you want to and I'll fire you if I have to anytime. But let's have that be the foundation of our relationship. And it just doesn't make any sense. Why are we starting every employment arrangement with a false premise? But we have. Yeah. So it feels dishonest to me, right? Yeah. And what I should have felt when I left EA early, about a year and a half into it was, wow, we couldn't have provided that to you here, but we positioned you to be able to be recruited or sought after there. So we're going to take a little bit of credit. And my boss took a huge hit that, he left way before he should have. And this is really bad. Like, what? And because, I was supposed to be her successor potentially. And so she took a big knock that I was leaving. And I'm like, no, this is just wrong. It's all wrong. And that's part of what I get to later in the book, which is I think we should try to think bigger than only caring about people when they work for you. We should care about people their whole career, and it's so short-sighted that most organizations, think about this, all the viewers, how many of you, when you left, have had an effort by your former employer to really keep that relationship tight? And the answer is usually zero. And it's because, it's the Tony Soprano School of HR. You quit, you're dead to me, and never want to talk to you anymore. And that's a shame. And here's the thing that I'm really trying to help leaders understand today, because everyone's frustrated that people are leaving faster. I'm frustrated. I'm not here excited to tell you that your people are going to leave your company faster than any time in history, but no one believes it's going to slow down. So how about we start asking a different question than how do we keep people longer? Let's start asking a different question. How do we build value when people are going to stay shorter periods of time? And don't you want to work for someone that cares about you for your whole career, not just when they work for you, right?
What's the crazy interview question that you cite in the book about?
Yeah, so this was a sales leader that we had at LinkedIn, Mike Gamson, who's now he's a wonderful guy, and he used to begin interviews at LinkedIn by saying, "Okay, so first question is, when you leave LinkedIn, what do you want to be doing?" And they're like, "What? Am I fired? I haven't even got a job offer, and you're firing me?" And it's like, no, we both know you're going to go, so let's just start this relationship with modeling your experience here to realize what it is you want to do. And at first I was really taken by that because it really shocked. And sales was half of our company at LinkedIn. So literally half of the headcount were salespeople. And Mike's like, no, it's an honest conversation. It's called playing the long game. I want people to know when they walk in, the first time they meet with me, I care about them their whole career. I want them to know. And I thought, wow, that's beautiful. And Bob, to be at LinkedIn, where we're the professional network, to have the chance to sort of build the architecture of the future of work was pretty inspiring, that we're trying to help, build a new model, a more refreshing model, more satisfying model. And that just takes the pressure out of us. Let's play this dance that you're going to leave. I know you're going to leave, but let's pretend you're not. and talk about your succession plan. Like, no, it just doesn't make sense, right? Yeah.
Well, you give the great example of college basketball recruiting and basically how that model changed and how that overlays with our relationship with employers.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Want
mind
me to
sharing
speak
that
to that?
with
Sure.
Coach K?
So one of the things you try to do when you're helping organizations and leaders navigate something hard is deliver experiences or examples of other industries and places where people have faced similar circumstance and challenge.
Yeah.
And as a huge sports fan, as a huge basketball fan, it just dropped to my lap one day. What was happening in college basketball was a similar shift. And those of you that know college basketball or know what I'm talking about, if you don't, here's the story. Over the last 15 years, the rules of college basketball have changed such that a player can leave to enter the professional ranks after 1 year of college. And it used to be people would finish 4 years of college and then submit their name for the draft and then go in. So what happened at the best schools is that the best players were only going to stay for a year. And some universities were really struggling with this. 1 year? I don't want to hire someone just 1 year, because that means I don't have 4 years to build a team. I don't have 4 years to teach a complicated offense or a complicated defense. I don't want to do that. And then what happened is, and Coach Mike Krzyzewski at Duke was the biggest holdout. He started losing to Appalachian State and Division II teams that he'd never heard of. And he's like, I'm going to have to change my strategy and find a way to create value on my basketball team in 3 months, not 4 years. Because March Madness happens about 3 to 6 months after the school year begins. So I've got to create a world-class team every year. I've got to recruit people with the expectation that they're going to go. And I've got to sell them that when you go, your life will be better if you come here than if you go to any other school. And on and on. And so what does Coach K do? Coach K is recruiting all the time. So organizations that are struggling with high turnover, I'm telling them, listen, your problem isn't recruiting. Your problem is you've got a broken model of how you're measuring your talent success. And people are going to continue to leave. So how about, recognizing here's one of the big things that Duke does really well that I think is something all of us could learn from, which is they have an alumni strategy. When even if you leave after a year, they keep in touch with you and they say, if it doesn't work out in the NBA, we'll help get you a job coaching as an analyst, as a scout, as an announcer. We've got your back if you're part of our family, and our name and our brand means something, but we know you're going to go and we will help you in the future, not just when you work for us. And think about that. Don't we all want that? Don't we all want to work for an employer that when we leave, they still got our back? They're still helping us, but that's not how we've traditionally built it. And so that's one of those things where, and again, I'm not the bearer of happy news in many of these conferences or, boardrooms when I'm speaking to people, but they will never disagree with me. And I say, your people are leaving faster than ever? Yes. Do you think that will change in the next 10, 15 years? They say, no, it won't. I said, okay, well, all your talent strategies and all your rewards and all your compensation benefits are driven off people staying longer. Why? They're not going to. And it's not about you. It's not that you've got a pimple on your face or people don't want to date you or you're not cute. It's because they have more choice than ever. And there's been, in the last 25 years, think about this, there's more new industries that have been born than in any 25-year segment since we've been measuring new industries. Online gambling, share workspaces, electric cars, Airbnbs, Ubers, Instagram, Facebook, Google, all these companies, all these new industries in the last 25 years. And so it's fundamentally creating a really difficult dynamic. And the best metaphor that I like to use when I'm presenting at conferences, listen, do you use Netflix? Yeah, most people use Netflix. How does that work for you on Friday night when you pull up Netflix and you're like, what am I going to watch? Should I watch a documentary? Did I see the last episode of Ted Lasso? Is the new Narcos season out yet? Do I want a drama, a comedy? And you spend the whole night watching previews. And that to me is just the greatest similarity to what many younger professionals and professionals at all levels are facing right now. Is they have so much choice and they're worried about making the wrong choice. And they're worried and they have visibility to, well, that company's got great learning, or that company's got a great project, or that company's got great compensation or great leadership, or they're doing great philanthropy work. And you're worried you make the wrong choice. And we've never faced the magnitude of visibility and transparency in the career domain as we have today.
Mm.
And we don't know how it's all going to play out, honestly, Bob. I mean, that's why you and I are, we have a lot of job security right now, because it's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs out there right now. And I don't think it's going to be easier for people to make career choices today. And I haven't even started talking about the fact that there's new platforms, not just new industries, new platforms to earn a living. You know, YouTube, SoundCloud, all these things where you can self-publish. You know, I can create a class on my phone and sell it to Udacity or Singularity or LinkedIn Learning. That was never available to me 10 years ago. And I can create a living like that. I produce these goofy videos on TikTok. I get paid from TikTok because I have over 1 million views and likes on a bunch of my stuff. So it's like, what? You know, like that's really fundamentally, you know, raising the bar of complexity for career choices that people have today. And I don't think employers appreciate that.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to explore just from that choice, one of the things that you talk about is the average tenure. I think of a millennial is 2.8 years in a role. I think that's a Bureau of Labor Statistics number.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty small time frame, less than 3 years at a job. And could you throw some color on that? It's not job hopping and what the benefits are to the employer of somebody that's got diverse experience, and what the benefits are to the employee of having all this diverse experience.
Right. Well, the first thing that I want to do, and that I've been spending a lot of time on the last few years, is trying to debunk the myth from many industries and organizations that long tenure is the only pathway to career organization success. It's not true. It's not true. When I started in high tech in 1994 at Advanced Micro Devices, the length of time it took to produce a semiconductor chip was about 6 years. From design concept to design idea to prototype to soft selling customer to hard selling customer to building out a version to testing the version to getting the signed sales doc to selling the product to, you know, shipping the product, about 2 years, in some cases longer. When I was at LinkedIn, do you know how long it takes from my brain or an engineer's brain to a new feature on the website? About 4 hours. Okay. So this notion of long tenure that we've been hanging on to and clinging on to, it does fit for jobs like surgeons or like someone putting someone on the moon. Yeah, I want people there a long time because lives are on the line. But a lot of work is changing quickly and jobs are changing quickly. And so this whole notion that people need to be in places a long time is not as, you know, foundational or necessary in many, many professions and careers as much as it used to. And the other thing that's behind that, Bob, is that most job descriptions, you ask any of the recruiters who are attending right now, let me ask the recruiters to put it in the chat right now. How long is a job description truly accurate once it's been written? And how soon after you post a job does that job change? I mean, in some cases it's weeks, in some cases it's months, but we know the job's going to change. We know the company's going to change. And so the kinds of skills we're asking people to have are continuing to accelerate. So this notion of, you know, fluidity of work is not necessarily a bad thing. And the other business case I want to throw out there is, and I see Danielle's attending here. She was one of my colleagues at LinkedIn. Right on. Let's go, Danielle. But one of the things that we did at when I was at LinkedIn was when we had a problem, okay? And when I joined, we were about 6 years old, and it seemed like we had a problem like every week. There was some big problem. We would sit around the table as an executive team, and we would brainstorm. And the CEO would go, hey, Deep, when you were at Google, how'd you solve this problem? Hey, David, when you were at Yahoo, how'd you solve this problem? Hey, Steve, when you were at Cisco, how'd you solve this problem? You see? And the fact that we were all relatively new and from different places built a core of real diverse decision-making capability. And so that's why when you look in the automobile industry, and Tesla is absolutely slaughtering the valuation, it's worth more than Ford, Toyota, Honda, and General Motors combined times 3. That's how much Tesla's worth. They're not selling more cars. They're not making more profit. And they're run by, I don't know, someone who's a little bit different than we're used to seeing in a CEO. And they're killing it. And what the investors are telling us is people who've been there a long time in those other automobile companies is a liability to their capacity to innovate. So I'm looking around and saying, Do you see what the investor community is telling us? People who are new, people who haven't been mired in the same paradigms and the ways of seeing things, we're betting on them to change the world, right, of automobiles. That's interesting. What's also really interesting to me, ironically, Bob, is that all the investment firms, the JP Morgans, Morgan Stanleys, that are investing in Tesla do not subscribe to that talent philosophy in their house.
Yes.
Like, stay here a long time, be loyal, but you're saying that your investment thesis is a different model, which I find just super ironic and super interesting on one level.
Well, particularly when people are our greatest asset, but we don't invest according to that same thesis. So,
Right.
so yeah, different backgrounds, having seen different business models, having lived through different business cycles, whatever their industry is. And then one of the things that I think that you make is such a great point is also around you broaden your network. I've worked with so many clients who worked at company X for 25 years. That's the beginning and the end of their professional network. And all of a sudden that goes away because they became a cell on a spreadsheet that was expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And they have no professional network. They don't have other people to draw on, other perspectives to draw. They only know one thing. And I just think that is such a giant liability, particularly when there's just so much, to use your word, fluidity and ambiguity, and you don't have the relationships to draw on.
Right. It can feel really isolating. One of the things I try to do in my book to mitigate the sense of fear that people have, if they don't teach you this in school, for example. Like, I got lucky choosing HR. I didn't think about this at the time. But what's great about the profession of HR is I can work in any company, any industry, any country. I am immune to a downturn in whatever semiconductor sector goes down. Fine, I'll go in networking. I'll go into a hospital. I'll go into transportation company. I can go anywhere. But no one told me that I have immunity to any downturn because I chose a profession by accident that can go lots of different places, right? And so one of the things I try to do in my book, in Workquake, is help people understand your network's way bigger than you think. I've lost count of the doors, ideas, and people that I have encountered at a sports game, sitting in the stands, talking to them while we're watching our kids. I've lost count. And I would even test ideas for my book, sitting there after practice or picking up kids, and we're waiting outside because the practice is running late. He says, "Hey, what's going on?" And they're, "Oh, I'm writing a book. What's it about?" And then all of a sudden, "Hey, you should talk to my friend so-and-so." We have huge networks outside of work, in whether it's church, volunteer organizations, kids sports. I got my job at LinkedIn through attending a kid's birthday party. That I met someone who worked at LinkedIn. He invited me to interview. It was a kid's birthday party. And just like any dad who's taking his kids to a small kids theme park, I was like, oh, great. A whole day of kids yelling in my ears with a sugar high. This is just going to be so much fun. It was a life-changing moment. And I think sometimes we neglect to appreciate the unbelievable fertility of just living life. Like and you and I have known each other for a little while here. Like, that's just me. Like, I'm just curious and I'm hungry to learn and meet new people. And I feel that served me really well,
So I want to, there seems to be a little bit of a theme here, and I want to pay respect to some of the stuff people are talking about here. One is around retention, and should companies just like give up on retention strategies? And if you do, then how does that affect career planning? And then two is, how in the crap do you constantly be in this recruiting mode and this high turnover?
Yeah, I don't think you have a choice, Bob. I mean, Carrie Shakespeare has a really good question here. Employers want tenure because turnover is disruptive. How do we optimize for constant turnover?
Yeah.
You optimize it by doing a couple things. You re-engineer work so it doesn't take someone a long time to learn how to do something. You expect turnover, which means you build pipelines. One of the big problems that most organizations are not even thinking about right now that have a recruiting problem is that what they really have is a creativity problem. Let's take healthcare, for example. I don't know if anyone here is in the healthcare industry. The turnover of nurses right now is higher than it's ever been for lots of reasons. And one of the things that I'm consulting with several healthcare associations around the world. And one of the things that I'm asking them to think through is you are hurting because you have no control over your supply of nurses. Why? This is the lifeblood of your vitality. Why are you letting a travel nursing temp agency govern you? Why don't you go buy a temp agency? Why don't you go buy a travel nursing business? It's much easier to run than a hospital. Trust me. Why are you not getting with universities? Why are you not funding your own schools and getting with high schools and starting apprenticeships that are exposing people to the magnificently life-changing work that nurses contribute to? You're relying on other schools out of your control to produce your supply. And that's your problem. Now, when I worked at Cisco for 6 years, they did something amazing to solve their supply problem. We have all this networking gear, and customers want to buy our networking gear. They can't find network technicians. So Cisco said, let's have a philanthropy strategy where we build network academies in low-income areas of the world, train high school students to be network technicians and get high-paying jobs, and that builds a supply of talent. It changes communities because we're investing in lower-income, disadvantaged communities. It's making the world a better place.
Yeah.
And you don't think the employees, we got so excited about that. So excited about that. But that, that's the kind of thinking we need to do. It's like, we don't want people leaving because it disrupts things. Well, you designed your work, so people need to stay a long time to learn how to do it. And then when they leave after, that's your problem. You need to change how you're creating work, because people, I'm telling you, they are not going to stay longer in the future. They just won't in general. I'm not happy to tell you that, but they're not. So you have to build a strategy that optimizes for that. The second thing is you need an alumni strategy. Bring those people back. I think we're going to start measuring the quality of organizations, Bob, in the future by how many people return to the company. They go out. The grass is always green. They can come out. Hey, Cheryl, good to see you out there. The grass is green. And so if people come back, it's super, super interesting, and I think that's an indicator. Like when I worked, my first job out of college I worked at the fashion company Esprit, and they had for its time, an insane practice. I've never heard it before or since. It's called the grass is greener policy. At any time, you can leave the company for a month and try working somewhere else. And if you don't like it, come back. Yeah. Yeah. We hold you, we put you on a leave. You go taste something else. If you think it's better, it's just like Zappos did something like, we're going to pay you to leave. If you're not happy, we're going to pay you to go. Yeah. That is bold. It's brave, but it's honest. Right. And let's deconstruct the world of recruiting careers and go a step further. Interviews are the worst way to hire someone, but it's what we use. The best way is internships. Why? Because we both try each other out. The problem is you get one bite at that, and that's when you're sort of in school or you're when you're mid-career, you can't say, hey, I want to go do an internship over at Amazon and see how it goes, and if I like them and if they like me. Can't do that. That, to me, if we can architect that in some way at scale, that would be pretty genius.
So one of the things that I think I'd love for you to riff on is employers, back to kind of like old models. It's, you must have all of these proven experiences to even qualify. The ATS, the applicant tracking system, right, is finely tuned to how many years of experience you have on all of these hard skills. And if you're in a constant recruiting kind of a world, which we are in and will continue to be in, that tremendously reduces the pool of candidates versus looking more for potential adaptability, learning agility, some of the things I know that you talk about. Could you help employers think a little bit differently about what your real talent pool is and what you should be looking for?
Sure. Several dimensions. One, most organizations believe falsely that the only way we're going to create value is with regular full-time employees 100% dedicated to us, right? That's wrong. That's wrong, and it's false. I will tell you, when I was building LinkedIn and helping grow that, more than half of my recruiters were not employees. They were contractors. Now, I wasn't happy about that, but my finance leadership was saying, we don't know that we're going to have the same load long term, so we're not sure that we want to give you that headcount because the burden of that headcount. So that's number one. Stop assuming the only way you can create value is with people that you own and people are 100% dedicated to, because most people, I believe, are morphing into more of a portfolio career than a single track, have one job. That's one thing. The second thing is, in a world where supply of qualified talent is diminishing, most people are telling me around the world, I can't find the people fully qualified that I need. And when I do, they don't stay as long as they used to. I'm saying, listen, I don't believe that supply is going to change. I think it's going to diminish. So we're used to hiring people 90% to 100% qualified, and we're heading towards a reality where it's going to be 50 or 60%. So what does that mean? That means we need to build jobs where people can learn and grow. And we need to make learning and developing people our core business strategy, not the fringe department over there in HR that gets laid off first in a downturn. It needs to be the core of what you do, because that also feeds what everyone wants. Why do most people leave? Because I feel like I can learn more and become more valuable over there. And you've suffocated me. You're keeping me in this job family. You're not growing me. You're not giving me new experiences, because that's your architecture of job careers. I'm going to go. And see, that whole career pathing thing, keeping people in the same job families and, oh, you can't apply for something else unless you've been here a year or 2 years, was built for a slower time. That time is gone. The ship has sailed. So what I'm trying to tell people is, you've got to feed the desire to learn if you want people to stay. And people go, whoa, 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 whoa. But if I feed them and I pay the budget, they're just going to go. And go, they're going to go anyway. And so remember, you should care about your people for the entirety of their career, not just when they work for you. And that goodwill, I believe, will return itself to you. They'll refer people to you. So let's take LinkedIn, for example. Of all the places I've worked for, 6 big organizations in my life, LinkedIn was the last and the most progressive from an alumni strategy. Here's what they do. They ping me regularly. We got a new product. Can you give us some feedback on the product and tell us what you think? Hey, we notice you're connected to an account that we want to open the door with. Would you be kind enough to make an introduction? Would you like to come back to an alumni luncheon and share what you're working on? Would you coach one of our executives who's thinking of leaving and give him some advice, or give her some advice? Like, that's phenomenal. So how do you think I feel about LinkedIn? I'm like, yeah, that is phenomenal. And hardly any organization is really is thinking in those terms. And I think that stems from, the founder, Reed, was, he just thinks about, thinking about work in terms of tours of duty. So if you're continuing to hold on to models of people need to stay a long time, I believe you're just going to frustrate yourself. It's not realizable. If you're in a space, like I said earlier, like we're solving cancer, we're saving people's lives, you don't want a high turn of reality there, right? That's why the nursing issue is so critical, because lives are on the line. Failure is not an option right now. And so someone said it in the thread earlier, I think it was Keisha, we got a big problem. Like, you can't hire people because it's too expensive. Well, then you need to change your business model, because those people need to make more money, and more time is valuable to them. And paying for I live in the Bay Area. No one can afford to live here. Somehow we're all living here. I don't know how people are affording to live here. It's insane. But that's really, really important. People say, oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. No, you don't want to do that. That's what you're saying. You don't want to pay people more. And in the nursing industry, they're going to have to. They're going to have to. How can you justify paying a travel nurse 4 to 5 times more than the people who've been loyally servicing you and dedicated to you for 10 years? Like, it just doesn't, like, I'm not saying you have to pay 5 times more, but maybe twice as much as you were before. Get closer to bridge that gap. And yes, it will diminish your profits on the top line. It'll diminish it, but that's what you're going to have to do.
So one of the points that you make in the book very early on is employability is a new job security.
Right.
And, the economy doesn't seem to be going in the right direction these days. Tech companies, particularly startups, are laying people off. Like, what was it? Layoffs.fyi, keeps track of all these layoffs, and it's really happening quickly, but it's also happening at big companies. And so there's going to be some inevitable movement, in the labor market because of people just trying to manage their income statement. How would you encourage people to, and I'm talking more on the talent side of the equation, how would you encourage people to best position themselves so that if the inevitable happens and you do find yourself, in cell C6 in a CFO spreadsheet, that you're going to survive it and even thrive.
Yeah, I think that's why you said it early in asking the question, Bob, which is I don't think people today want job security. They want career security, which is bigger than job security. I don't think people believe companies that say, oh, yeah, you're going to be good. We're never going to let you go. Like, who's going to believe that? There's more out of a company's control than ever before. So how I think about this and the advice that I offer people is, back to something you pointed out earlier, keep your network warm all the time. Always be looking for your next play. Always be looking for your next play. Look at how you can parlay your skills in different ways. There's different places you can go, things you can do. And if you're wanting to upgrade your skills and your company is not playing ball and not wanting to invest in you, right? I posted, by the way, I have one of the most viewed posts I've ever done on LinkedIn last week. I posted a story that Business Insider did about an Amazon engineer that said, I was making $400,000 a year and I quit because I was an engineer and I wanted to get into product. And I tried for a year and a half to try to get over there. I really wanted to do that. And they're like, nope, nope, nope. And it just struck a chord that what people want is to be made better for tomorrow, right? So if your company's blocking you, volunteer somewhere. Go find an opportunity to raise the skills and build the skills. Be around people, self-study, like do things that you want to do to help equip yourself with something that gets you closer to, leveraging what you're really good at and what things that you want to learn. And so that's sort of, we all have to be looking all the time. And it's not disloyal, I don't think. It's loyal, it's the smart thing to do because your company can't control what may be coming their way. In the last 5 months of this year, 17,000 technology workers have been let go, and some very, very flaming, outrageous ways like at better.com on a brutal Zoom call, which I continue to just pound him for that. And just absurd that that's tolerated today. And then those people are also going, oh, employees are so disloyal today. Really? Look what you just did. How is that, the way you treated people, just discard them. And it's all the investors that think that's okay. That I think is really, it's really disappointing. So we deserve something better. We really do. But that's the thing that, I've got, kids who are starting to enter the workforce. I never did internships as a kid. That's really super helpful because honestly, there are millions of different opportunities that could really spark you and you just don't know. And that's why I try to tell my kids, like, go somewhere where you can learn lots of different things. Do you like small teams, big teams, fast environments, loud environments, quiet environments? You like working on your own, like working for a boss that's all up in your stuff. You like working without a boss. Like, what is it that you really like? And what problems do you like solving? What industries sort of tickle your interests? And that's what And the sad thing is, for most of us, we don't get a chance to taste from the career buffet table of all the places where we could really find magic, right? Like one of the places I've always known that I would love to go and do is like be a dean of students in a university. Like I have great joy helping people unlock things when they're stuck. I don't have time to, go over there. And right now I'm just too busy on other things, but I sense that that's a place where I wish I could go check out, and I think we all have some of those, but we only have so much time to go explore it. So use the opportunities that you have and informational interview the heck out of people if they're doing something that you think of, that might be something you're interested in. Yeah.
So I want to pick up on a comment here that I see Scott Peterson's got, and he's saying, the notion of treating individuals like workers or employees is not a successful model anymore. You have to treat them like people. And can you talk a little bit about the shared humanity, the employers and employees have, and how you see some of these air quotes soft skills actually being the most important ones?
Yeah. So one of my favorite moments when I get a bunch of non-HR leaders and executives into a room is say, why are people leaving your company? And they just start going on a rant of those disloyal millennial career sugar high, shopping for promotion, bad values. And then I start saying, how many of you are going through like a digital transformation right now? And oh yeah, we got to raise technology. And so you start walking them down this path where it's very clear that the marketing of the future of work is the worst marketing campaign in history. We are fundamentally scaring the hell out of the workforce. Artificial intelligence is coming. Automation is going to replace your job. Half the skills you need in the next 10 years don't even exist today. We're scaring people. And you're asking me why people are leaving and taking control of their careers? Are you joking? And most companies, sadly, talk more about the technology and the sophistication of their digital transformation strategy than they do the fact that all that tech is here to deliver a greater human experience. But all it's doing right now is making us feel behind, making us feel like we're not succeeding. I can't keep up with my emails. I tried to learn Slack 3 times. I just can't do it. Like, I'm just like, that ship sailed. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna figure it out. I respect people that do. Okay, that's great, but it's overload for me. Like, I got my tools, I'm good. But that's not what we do. Think about the words we're using when we talk to our employees. Digital transformation. What about those words is inviting and encouraging and comforting? Nothing. Digital transformation, the imagery that comes to my mind is inhuman, robotic, cold steel, Space Odyssey 2000, nothing human. We need a new language that's inviting. And I think it's disappointing. It's really a missed opportunity for us. We need to shift the conversation from technology to how can we make your life more rewarding, more beautiful? And as one of the comments came in earlier, who was it? I think it was Scott said, yeah, Scott talked about it. This is why I love the moment that we're in right now. We have gotten to know each other more as coworkers better when we're not together as much because we're in each other's homes, looking at the home decor, looking at the kitty cat walking across the keyboard, seeing all kinds of strange home decor tastes, whatever. We now know there's this couple of senior citizens living in our coworkers' home like we didn't know. We didn't know that their place is so small that they've got to share a workspace with 2 other, people that they're renting a house with, whatever. We know more about each other. We need to leverage that moment that we've had right now of greater human awareness. And work has just got more personal. And this, I talk about, I've been talking lately about how the pandemic has been the hostile takeover of work and home has come together, and no one asked for it, but it happened and it's here. And so now we have to account as leaders, as managers. The first conversation we have to ask with people who are working from home is, how's everything? You good? Not like, hey, give me the update on the quarterly numbers, right? No, it's, are you good? Because if you're worried about your kid's education, if you're worried about a compromised family member who's at risk, you're not focused on your work. And that's the world we live in right now. And by the way, this whole work from home thing, Canadian government said it best. We're not working from home. We're trying to do the best we can to do work in the middle of a freaking disaster, of a pandemic. That's not normal. We've not hit normal yet. And we still have an upswing here in California, places that said you don't have to mask now, said you got to mask again. And some school districts, I heard Philadelphia said we got to go back in until the end of the year. So we're not through the woods yet. And it's not a normal time. And one of my friends in Spain said to me one time something which really resonated. This is like a year ago. He says, you know what the new normal is? I go, no, tell me, what is it? He goes, never normal. That's the new normal. And I'm like, well, that's not very satisfying. He goes, but that's true. And he said it with a beautiful English Spanish accent. But that's really, I think, where we're at right now, which is, the metal of a career, the metal of an organization are the same things. Your capacity to adapt, right? And we've just been given the greatest leadership test, the greatest career test of our lives, of having to adapt at home and at work, right? And I hope that we're going to mine that for opportunity for all of us, as much as we can.
Well, Steve, I think you're starting to put a bow on this. So thank you, because ambiguity is the new never normal. Like we will continue to live in ambiguity. And if we ever thought that things were sure and secure, we were probably misled anyway, or delusional. But the fact that things continue to change, to expect that change, not be afraid of it, not to be surprised by it, but to find ways to embrace it and to be prepared for whatever comes next through, again, learning, agility, and to be able to pick up things quickly, to be able to relate to one another, as a human being, to be empathetic. Hey, before we get into the quarterly, how's your mother? Yeah, I know she had, right?
Yeah.
And how's her surgery?
Yeah.
Is she doing okay? And all those kinds of things that
Right.
like genuinely connecting with people as a human being. That's the new normal. And I couldn't agree with you more that the pandemic, I love the cats across the keyboard, the little kid jumping in the room. I didn't know you lived with your parents. Like all
Mhm.
that stuff. I love knowing about the real human being there, not just the work producing unit. So as
Mhm.
we put a bow on this, what are the couple three just, man, if you don't get anything else out of our little chat today, here's what I want you to know.
Um, don't play defense with turnover. Play offense. Expect people are going to go, and think about building great relationships. I say don't talk about retaining employees. Talk about retaining the relationship. That's a beautiful thing, and that's management consulting is really really great about that. Think about, and it's something you're just going to feel better about. It's like it's so relieving. It's much more of an honest conversation. And again, look at the situation that we're in, not from a situational mindset, but from a sustainable mindset, which means don't focus on the pandemic. Things are going to continue. We are not through the ripples or the aftershocks, as I say in my subtitle of my book, Workquake. We are not through it, and there are many more coming. I think turnover is going to increase. I think Middle America hasn't got the program yet. They're getting it, and I think it's going to continue to go. Look at retail, restaurants, hospitality, just deer in the headlights. In high tech, we've been having this war for decades. Like it's game. We're ready for it. We're expecting it, right? But it raises your capacity. Like if you want to solve, last thing I'll say, because there's so many things I could say as big ones, but the last thing I'll say is you do not have a recruiting problem right now. You have a creativity problem. You're not going to solve recruiting by going hunting. You're going to have to build talent as much as you're buying talent. And if you learn how to build talent, you're going to solve your inefficiencies and inabilities to find talent in the open market. Even at LinkedIn, when we were growing like crazy, in a market where Google could outpay me, outbenefit me, outperk me, outwork environment me, we figured out how to win because we created a place where you're going to have the best career you've ever had if you come here. Yeah, we can't pay you as much as them. We can't give you the free sushi chef or build the on-site childcare center, but we're going to promise you that we've got the greatest career experience you've ever had. And did we deliver on it all the time? No, but man, that was really exciting. And to see the way that shifts from we got to go hunt people. When you become a place people want to be, you just solve your recruiting problem. People will find you, right? And that's the ultimate checkmate that I think everyone wants, which is how do we get the great people here? Become the place where the great people want to be. Don't go try to think that there's some recruiting budget marketing campaign that's going to solve. It's not. You got to be the place, and that's a good thing for all of us. That companies are having to raise their game, right?
Yeah. So that, and so ending on creativity, because that's the one thing that technology can't outdo people with, right? We will, computers are not creative. People are creative, and bringing that's the superpower.
Mm-hmm.
So, Steve, obviously I'm a giant fan, had to keep showing the book. I'll show the book. Can't
Thank
recommend
you.
it enough. Following Steve on LinkedIn, following Steve on TikTok, your podcast. If people, well, here we go. So if people want to get in touch with you, looks like this might be the best way.
Yeah, just reach out to me. Thank you, Stephen and Cheryl and Danielle, some of my friends who joined today. It's good to see you guys again. But yeah, if you've got ideas, if something I said resonates for you, yeah, please reach out. I'd love to hear more, especially if you're in an organization that's trying some new stuff that I want to share with the world. So I super appreciate that. I want to just put a teaser in right now because I'm starting my next book, Bob, and it is going to be basically the working title right now is Less is More. And I think that we have overvalued experience and undervalued talent, and how I believe the power of Silicon Valley is at scale. More people are being put in jobs that they're not ready for, and the outcomes are disproportionately positive. And so I'm trying to really get some really good examples and some good data and reference material around that. And Stephen Howard, I need to talk to you about that too, because I know this is a passion area for you too. But that's part of how are we going to solve the talent shortage, the skill gap, is we're going to have to see that people can do stuff way beyond being qualified and ready for it, way beyond. And if we all think about our own career journey, this is why I want to write this book. If we all think about our own career journey, when have you had the most energy? Doing the same thing for 5 years or tackling something new and different and scary, and maybe you're not really feeling like you're qualified for. And that just unlocks so much disproportionate, fire in the belly, that I think that's one of the major reasons why I think Silicon Valley is super successful. And most other organizations play for the safe, I'm hiring for experience. And you're the one that said it, Bob. I quote you all the time. You said, we don't do talent acquisition. We do experience acquisition, which is so true. And when the experience isn't there, you're going to have to hire talent now. So, and maybe that's a forcing function for us to raise our awareness.
So, Steve, I'm just so thankful. You can see the comments. People really got a ton of value out of this. It's inspiring. It's encouraging. And rather than cower in fear, I think we can just stand up and run to the opportunities. And you're showing people how to do that. So for that, I'm very, very grateful. So thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. And if you had to miss any of this, you can always catch it again on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform. And with that, we'll let people get back to their day. And again, thank you so much for sharing an hour with us. Thanks.